In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to make beautiful napkin cards with no wrinkles, and you don't have to use cling wrap. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If we've never met before, I'm Katya and I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining me. Now let's get started. I realized there are several methods to make napkin cards, just adhering them to card fronts with tape runners, but if you have a napkin that has a few wrinkles in it, you will not get smooth results. This technique is a bit of a game changer and you will get gorgeous results. Now for this technique, you're going to need decorative napkins of your choice, a sheet or page protector that is split in half, liquid glue, not the tacky kind, a spray bottle filled with water, and a soft artist brush. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to peel your napkin layers apart. Now most of the decorative napkins that I have purchased have either two or usually they come in three parts. So this one here that I'm peeling apart, you can see that I've got the first layer apart and you will notice that it still has some white and there is a second layer on it as well. So one of the easiest ways I have found to pull that last piece is to get a little piece of tape and put it onto this section that you know you're not going to be using as part of your art project and use that as a tab to pull the other last layer apart, which is what I'm doing here. And as you can notice, that top layer now is very fragile because it's just one sheet of that 3-ply tissue, and you want to be very careful when you're pulling it apart. Now, since this napkin has 6 different designs on the full napkin when it's unfolded, I'm going to be using that one that's off to the far left-hand lower corner as my focal design. Next, you want to trim your napkin to the size of the cardstock you're using, and I recommend that you cut it just a little bit larger than the cardstock that you're going to be using. So now I'm left with just this one single panel for my card design, and I decided to trim the bottom of it just a little bit because it had a repeating pattern that wasn't part of the initial design, and then that top where I have a little bit of a fold. And I'm going to scrap that. Next, you're going to grab your sheet protector and you're going to put the pretty side facing down on top of that split piece of a page protector. So here's what you need to do. Take a spray bottle filled with water and spray the napkin and really saturate it. It doesn't matter how much water you use, but obviously the more you use, the more drips you're going to have, so just be cautious of that. If you don't have a spray bottle filled with water, you can simply pour water in a cup and put it directly on that. Now you want to remove the bubbles and the wrinkles using that soft brush. I'm using a fan brush in this case, but as you can notice, I'm taking my fingers and I'm slightly pulling on the napkin to get rid of the wrinkles. I want to exercise a lot of caution when you're doing this so you don't rip that layer because it is a very thin piece of tissue paper basically. So using the extra layers that you peeled away from this third piece of your design, you can use that by simply pouncing on top of the wet design to remove the excess water. And you'll see here in just a few minutes that I found it a little bit easier to use standard tissue paper, facial tissue, to get off the extra water because it's a little bit softer. The tissue left over from the napkin was a little bit hard and crunchy, so I felt like a tissue was a little bit better. And you want to get off as much of the excess water as you can. As you can see here, almost every one of the wrinkles is out. I still have a few of them and there's a little fold there off to the left that I want to get out as well. So you can just add extra water, and if you see more bubbles or a few more wrinkles that you want to take out, you can simply respray the water on top of your design and use your fingers or a brush to get them out. And then again, you always want to make sure that you're doing the dabbing motion with your excess tissue to get as much of the water out and not pulling it with a lot of strength because you will rip the napkin. Okay, and I'm pretty satisfied with the way this looks right now, and I will not be using that little tiny square of cardstock because I'll ruin the purpose of having a really pretty design. So I decided to cut an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper down in half. So I have a cardstock now that will be a little bit better proportion for the design of my card. And I'm using a little bit of a liquid adhesive spray. This is not aerosol. I don't recommend that. I recommend that you use a liquid glue. Now, if you don't have a liquid glue in a spray bottle, you can simply pour some glue into a jar like I'm going to show you here, and then just mix it with water so that it's a very thin consistency. I don't know the exact ratio of water to glue, but I would say experiment. You want to get a glue that's kind of drippy like you see here coming off of this brush. It just drips really easily. So you don't need a lot, and I would highly recommend that you make the layer of your glue on the cardstock as thin as possible, because the goal we're trying to get here is to get a super smooth looking card panel. So I'm spritzing the card panel here with that spray glue. And again, you want to get this as smooth as possible. You don't want any wrinkles on your card panel. So I'm just spritzing it and using that same fan brush to get this as smooth as possible. That's why you want the thinnest layer of glue, and adding water to your glue will make it really super thin. When you adhere the napkin on it, it will adhere no problem because that tissue is extremely thin. Okay, so now I'm going to switch that panel so that it's in portrait mode. And then I'm going to take the napkin that is still on top of that page protector, and I'm going to flip it over so that the pretty side is facing up. So there it is down, and now I'm going to change the orientation. And now I'm going to fold the page protector so that it's in a U shape, so it goes down right in the center, and then I can push it down nice and flat. And now you want to take some time and smooth it out on that cardstock. And what I like to do is take a bone folder and really squeeze out all of the excess water and glue. And you can put some pressure on here now because you have the protection of the page protector, which is covering that napkin, and it comes right off. But you can still work it into the paper, get all the excess glue out, and then I will plan on cutting this panel down to a card front. So you'll be able to work with it so that you can get it nice and smooth on the paper. And then um, on the edges, I basically just tried to get some of the excess water and glue out by using a tissue napkin. And you really want to burnish it as well as you can on the edges because you don't want that to lift. And I will tell you, you really don't need a lot of glue here at all to get a really smooth finish. And I was super excited with how this turned out. So then you can just lift back the page protector on itself, and it comes off really easily. And then you can wipe that down and use it again. And let me show you a close-up of how this looks. This is so pretty in person, and you can't really tell here, but this is so extremely smooth. It looks like a piece of cardstock with an image on it. It's beautiful. So I'm not going to lie, this process was really great and I was excited about the smooth finish results, but this panel that you're looking at really worked. And if you stick around, I'll show you how bad it got. That was even after placing a heavy object on top of that, plus the page protector, just to make sure I didn't get anything on it. But I did take a heat tool right here, as you see me doing here, to kind of dry it out. And I don't recommend that because it did cause more warping, and I'll show you the warping in just a minute. It started to warp here, but I just recommend that you use as little amount of glue as possible and maybe even use a brayer. But I did take this and I put this right on top and let it dry overnight, and wait till you see it the next morning. But take a look at this. This was how it was even after I lifted off that heavy object and it was drying overnight. It was just crazy. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Next time, maybe I will take this and run it through my heat laminator. So I might still try that. In any case, I found these napkins and I thought, oh my gosh, this cute little truck with the Easter eggs in the back, I've got to do that with this napkin technique. So I did the exact same thing. I followed the exact same process that I did on the floral panel, and this one turned out darling. And I noticed that it did have a few wrinkles on the very top, so I tried to dab them out with some excess water. And I did notice that it was lifting on the corner, so all I did was take a little bit of my spray glue and I sprayed it right on top because the glue and the water are such a thin combo. I was able to work out some of the wrinkles on the corners, and that worked out really well. And then I just put my page protector on top so that I could really press on the corners and the edges and make sure that those were completely solid and transferred down. So I didn't have as much warping on this little image here with the truck and the eggs in the back because it's not quite as large as the other panel. This one here I trimmed down to size, and although I love it, I love how it turned out, I love how smooth it is ready for a slimline card, but I have not made a card out of it yet. I just wanted to show you how beautiful it turned out. And then here is a final look at one of the cards I made. I added some embellishments and I put a little black frame around it because I cut off just a little portion of the front of the truck and I wanted to kind of hide that. So you and I know, but if the recipient gets this, they would never know. I embellished it, put a little bit of images around the edges with the leaves. And then here is another one I did that I really loved. I have a Hugs, what looks like a die cut, but it's actually a wooden die cut made out of wood, and I got it at Dollar Tree. It's just really beautiful. It's got lots of layers. Now, if you want to know a hack that I have for getting really beautiful stacked images without a lot of die cutting, take a look at one of the videos I have up at the top of the screen, and I will show you a tip and a trick on how to achieve that look with a lot less die cutting. So take a look at that. And here's another beautiful napkin I fell in love with. I just love how all of these turned out with the wood die cut there. That's again from Dollar Tree, just painted a different color. And I just love how all of these turned out. I'd love to know if you plan on giving this technique a try. So here's a final look at my 3 cards. I hope you enjoyed this. I'd love to know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know what you think and see if let me know if you plan on trying this. Now don't go just yet. On screen I have a couple of videos you might like, so be sure to check those out. And thanks for clicking that like button. That really helps my channel. If we are not already connected on Instagram and Facebook, I'd love to see you there too. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now.